So the Book of Boba Fett has shown us how the legendary bounty hunter once again came into possession of his iconic starship. So I figured today we could take a closer look at the design and the history of his ship, the Slave One. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So the Slave One is just about as iconic as ships like the Millennium Falcon or the X-Wing. Playing such a crucial role as an iconic bad guy ship in the original trilogy, it would go on to become a staple of the imagery of Star Wars within the pop culture. But ultimately, aside from its few appearances in the original trilogy, not much was known for a very long time about the history of this vessel. So today we're going to take a deeper dive into exactly what the history behind the Slave One is and a little bit about its design. So let's jump in with the basics. The Slave One is a Firespray 31 class patrol and attack craft. It was built by Kuat Drive Yards, the same company that manufactured the Imperial class Star Destroyer for the Galactic Empire. However, it was built long before the rise of the Empire, sometime during the days of the Republic before the Clone Wars. While the Slave One was relatively small, it was armed to the teeth. On its chin, it had a pair of twin rotating laser cannons which could engage enemies well landed and well in flight, along with a set of stationary laser cannons which could only fire forward and were really only useful during dogfighting, a pair of concealed projectile launchers for firing small missiles, proton torpedo tubes for obviously firing proton torpedoes, an ion cannon and a tractor beam for disabling and capturing vessels, and lastly, its iconic seismic charges which caused massive devastation when used. On top of this robust weapons complement, it had a fairly capable set of short-range sensors and a pretty sizable hyperdrive. The first owner of the Slave One that we know of in canon is the Uvo 4 prison colony. At this particular prison facility, there were actually several Firespray 31s used to patrol the surrounding area for escapees. At some point, Jango Fett actually stole one of these vessels and utilized it to wipe out all of the other Firespray 31s at that facility. He then took this vessel and had a significant amount of modifications made to it. It's likely that considerable armament that we talked about earlier was not standard on the Firespray 31, but added by Jango Fett after it came into his possession. Jango Fett would then carry on using the Slave One as his personal bounty hunting vessel for most of his career. He would use it all the way up to his death during the Battle of Geonosis, where it would be passed on to his son, although his son was far too young to actually fly it at that point. It would remain in the possession of Boba Fett for his entire bounty hunting career. We know that he was still using it by the time of The Empire Strikes Back to hunt down rebel sympathizers for the Galactic Empire. The Slave One was famously used to transport Han Solo while he was frozen in carbonite from Cloud City on Bespin to Jabba's palace on Tatooine. And Jabba's palace on Tatooine is where it would stay for quite some time. As many of us know, during the events of Return of the Jedi, Boba Fett is knocked into the Sarlacc pit, and that's where the story of the Slave One sort of catches up with the Book of Boba Fett. We do see that Boba Fett is back into the swing of using the Slave One by the time of the events of The Mandalorian, which isn't very surprising, and I assume that it will remain in his possession for some time to come. It is his iconic ship and part of his image. When you think of Boba Fett, you think of the Slave One. Now, that's very much the Cliff Notes version of the Slave One's story. It played a role in the Clone Wars, and went on countless bounty hunting missions during the reign of the Empire. But the Slave One isn't the only iconic ship utilized by a Mandalorian bounty hunter. Another one that's notable that a lot of you probably know about is the Razor Crest, utilized by Din Djarin in The Mandalorian. If you'd like to learn more about that vessel, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I want you to let me know down in the comments whether you like the Slave One or the Razor Crest more. Which one do you think is a more effective bounty hunting vessel, and if you had to pick one or the other to fly and use as a bounty hunter, which one would you pick? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars, leave it down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.